They both hit it. Had to do very little raining. It was a thing of beauty to watch that team work. Then they go up to the stacker, and they go in like this, and they jump back,
Most people have never seen that.
Oh, that was a thing of beauty. Now it's all machines, But what was really hard on the horses is the mowing machines. Oh, their shoulders. Oh, that was
Why
terrible.
don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are and where you were raised, and then you can show us a few of these things, and then we'll just kind of get into the formal story.
Okay. You want me to start?
Just talk to me.
Just talk
Okay. Well,
About.
my name, you want me to state my name and then go on? Okay, my full name is Anderson Wesley Bailey Jr. Everybody calls me Wes. And I was born up Crested Butte. In fact, I was born up at Smith Hill, the hard coal mine there. My dad was the tipple boss. And there used to be a yellow house there, a two-story house that has been long gone, years and years ago. But that's where I was born. And Dr. Russell came up on the engine to take care of my mother. Right. And then later on, I went to school up there by the Smith Hill mine, where the mine was actually. And Mrs. Frank Eulenk taught me there in the second grade. And, she was a great teacher. And she had discipline back. And the thing about it, I can remember practically lots of things that happened up there, whereas in some of the other grades, you didn't have a teacher that was that dynamic. You forget about him. So you want me to?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the hat that you got and a little of the medals. Maybe also the unit that you were in.
Oh, okay. I was in.
I'll get some pictures
Oh,
of it
here.
later.
I was in Company C of the 16th Engineer Battalion, a Combat Engineer Battalion of the 1st Armored Division. And all these red ribbons here, I guess you call it, designates 6 months overseas. So I was 3 years overseas. And this is the emblem of the 1st Armored Division. And over there in Iraq today, the first ones in there was the 1st Armored Division. And all these other medals as Prisoner of War Medal, African Mediterranean Medal, Good Conduct Medal, and like that up there. And then I had this framed. I had it just in my drawers and everything, and different envelopes and everything. So I decided to have it all put in here.
That's nice.
And then this is the American Prisoner of War. I belong to the American Ex-Prisoners of War, the national organization, and they meet once a year. And I've gone to several of their meetings. Well, one in Seattle, and one in Colorado Springs. They really treated us good there, and they had us out there at the Air Force Academy. And then the one that was really good too was in Las Vegas. They really bent over backwards for us out there. And then I went to one in Dallas Fort Worth there.
Well, when did you go in the Army?
Okay, I was working in the big mine up there at Crested Butte. I put 12 years in there altogether, but I was working in there. I started in the big mine in 1939, and then October the 1st of 1941, I got a letter from your friends and neighbors have selected you. And so I was inducted into the Army in October the 21st, 1941, over in the Customs building there in Denver. And when we went over, when several of them came down from Lake City, and then a bunch from Crested Butte, and then Gunnison. We had a whole busload, and we named Bob Williams we named him our leader, and we were over there, and so got inducted there, and then from there they sent us down to Fort Bliss, Texas, and more a little training, and then they gave us an IQ test, and I'll never forget it. They came to me and said, "Well, you did good on the IQ test. Would you like to join the Air Force for 4 years?" You know, and I figured, well, put 2 years in the Army, and, you know, but that was a mistake. Maybe not. If I'd got in the Air Force, I'd have tried to be a pilot or gunner or navigator or something, and you know, a lot of them got shot down, so you never know. So from Fort Bliss, Texas, they shipped us to, the various ones. They shipped in different post or forts all over the country. But they shipped me down to Fort Knox, Kentucky. And I was like I said, I was in Company C, 16th Armored Engineer Battalion of the 1st Armored Division. Now in the combat engineers, we do all the work. We all the work, and plus fight as infantry. And then while I was there, and they trained us like building bridges and various ways of demolition to blow up bridges and booby traps and mines and all that kind of stuff. And so then from there, and then while we were there, we went out on at night in full combat gear and initiated a combat atmosphere, you know. And I remember we went there. We had the High River. We went across it in salt boats, you know, and they had part of the units on the other side. If they caught them, they'd have to march all the way back to camp, you know, and it was just kind of a game, like a war game. Yeah, and under no lights whatsoever, you know. And then while we were there too, they were trained us on building bridges, and the one bridge I especially remember is the Bailey Bridge, an English bridge, you know, that the English used, and we trained on it, and we got it down pat where we could put a bridge across the High River, which was over a mile wide. We could put it over there in 45 minutes and have tanks running over it. You know, everybody had a job to do, and everything was.
So you could put a Bailey Bridge across a mile?
Uh-huh.
A mile worth of Bailey Bridge?
You're right.
In how long?
About 45 minutes.
Whoa. That's pretty impressive.
Right.
And then tanks.
But it took a lot of training to get it down that.
Yeah, for the whole brigade or company?
Oh, the whole company, yeah.
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 They weren't ideal situations either.
What?
Well, this was in training.
Oh, it's in training, okay. I was just imagining it wasn't ideal situations in reality.
No. No, in reality, well, you know, you'd be under fire and everything, you know. It was just...
You're doing great here, by the way, so everything's good. You just, we'll just continue as you're ready, and if you need to take a little break or
Okay.
whatever, hit the restroom, or we put those things
Oh, yeah,
off to the side
okay.
and finish.
And then, well, a lot of other training, a lot of marching, man. Well, we put in at least 15 miles a week, you know, putting in on marching and everything, and I'll never forget, you know, I was there in Fort Knox. I was laying on my bunk, and but prior to December the 7th, why we'd start at 6 o'clock in the morning, close order drill and calisthenics, and then do a lot of training. And then by 2 in the afternoon, we were through. Well, December the 7th, I was about half asleep on my cot, you know, and they announced that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. After that, we trained from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 at night, getting ready. So, and then, well, we did, and then we went on the firing range, you know, with rifles, and then the hand grenades, and how to throw them, and everything. And so, and then from there, they shipped us to Fort Dix, New Jersey. And we did some more training there. And then from there, they shipped us to Boston, Massachusetts. And we got on my company put us on a freighter that the Russians used in World War I. Oh, and we were in a convoy, you know. The convoy was amounted to about, I'd say anywhere from 60 to 80 or 90 ships. And the convoy moved as fast as the slowest ship. And so it took us 17 days to go from Boston to Belfast, North Ireland.
How long was it from the time of Pearl Harbor to when you were shipped out?
When I got shipped out, let's see, well, that was December. It was in February, I think. It was in February.
Pretty quickly then.
Yeah, right, pretty quickly, yeah.
2 months.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then while we're in this convoy, you know, one of my jobs was get up in the crow's nest and look for submarines. And the Atlantic was, oh man, it was really rough that time of the year, you know. And here that ship was going like that. It was just like a cork with a pencil in it like that, and you go all the way and almost hit the water this way, and then go all the way and almost hit that way, and look for submarines. Submarines, hell, I was hanging on for dear life. And we were supposed to be up there for 2-hour shifts, you know. But I remember that one time I was up there, it was 4.5 hours. Calmed down enough so I could come down. And then going over way down in the food galley there, why everything was boiled. And it didn't smell good, and a lot of guys got sick, and he couldn't eat anything. Some of them got seasick, and they were that way the whole time. So they were pretty thin time we landed in Ireland, and then some guys got their legs broke trying to walk on the ship, but we never lost anybody overboard, you know. But when we got there, and then there was 149th Infantry of the British Army came and got us and took us to a camp out of Belfast. And I'll never forget, because later on, when I got liberated, why this same outfit, of course, is all younger soldiers, but I recognized one sergeant in there. Yeah, it was still in there, liberated. That was really something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But while we were there at that camp, we trained, you know, on shooting the tanks and all kinds of drilling and fire and guns and all the war stuff, you know. And then we go we go into town, while we go into Belfast on a leave. But this is one thing I want to talk about. You know, we had coveralls and we get all greasy and everything, and there's a woman out there on this farm said she'd wash our coveralls. And in her house, it was just dirt floor. Just dirt floor and very, very little furniture. So I brought her all the coveralls, you know, the worst for the squad, and give her the GI soap. The GI soap would take everything out. But when I paid her, it wasn't much in American money. It was very reasonable, and she started crying. I says, "What are you crying for? Did I give you enough money?" She says, "You gave me too much." She says, "You know what you gave me? My husband don't make that on this farm for a whole month." And then, and then another thing too, while we were there, we got in a big shipment of apples, oranges, and candy and stuff like that. And so the kids there, a lot of those kids had never seen an apple or an orange or a banana. And so we held a big party and gave all that all to the kids. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, oh yeah. And then another time too, I was catching a ride into Belfast, and this truck stopped as they got in. There was two other fellows with me. We got in the back end of it, and when we got into Belfast, we were all white. He'd been hauling flour. So we went to a dry cleaning place, stripped out our shorts, and waited till they cleaned our uniform. So I was there about, stationed there about 6 months. Oh yeah, and while we were there, we built an all-American camp there, built the whole thing. And my job was, there in Ireland, you have very little topsoil. It's rock. And so they had to drill the holes, and I'd go around and put the powder in and blow a mill, and for all the utilities and everything. And we had crews like carpenters, plumbers. We built the whole camp there, yeah. And when you go into town, why, you know, the Irish, first thing is say, I want to know about your politics or religion, you know. And a lot of times there'd be some skirmishes between the GIs and the and the civilians. And you know what I told them before I left there? I says, "You people quit fighting. You people keep fighting over religion, you're all going to go to hell." I says, "Try to get along together." Well, and so from there they shipped us to a camp out of Manchester, England, and more training there and everything. And then from there, they put us on a passenger boat, a big passenger boat, and at Liverpool. It took us down to Liverpool, and then we went on down, and the Atlantic was rougher than heck, and we were eating out of the dishes and everything that they had on the ship, and it was so rough. Pretty soon all the dishes are broken, and pretty soon they come on the loudspeaker, says, "Bring your mess kits." Yeah. And so we went down there, and then we went into the Mediterranean Sea by Gibraltar there, and then we made the invasion in Iran and Algeria. We went in there, and they had a big fort that was overlooking this bay, and the Vichy French, I think, well, they were pro-Nazi anyhow. They were fire. We lost some men coming in there, but when we got in there while we took it over, and after that skirmish, we went into a bivouac area, rested up a little bit before going on. But I wanted to say, we were told, you know, like with the Arabs in there in Africa, be nice to them, give them candy and cigarettes, and if you ever went in their house, you take your shoes off. Of course, I'm never close enough to go in anybody's house, and but it wasn't long after that. I think the second time we were in a bivouac area, why they'd come in and steal everything. You know? Well, like one time I was talking to some another GI there, and I saw my blanket move a little bit, and didn't think, I thought it was the wind a little bit, and pretty soon I saw a big tug, and there was no wind, and it was Arab trying to steal a blanket, you know. So I got up and put my Band-Aid on my rifle and took off after him, and he was running his arms up like that, mercy, mercy, mercy. But we couldn't trust him. And so finally, our commanding officer said, you see any Arabs in the company area? Says shoot on sight and don't shoot to wound. That was over 60 years ago. Now look at the situation now. They're all armed to the teeth. It's 1,000 times worse. Yeah. And then we do some trading with them, you know. Some of the guys that where they make some kind of bread, cookies and stuff, and they trade like the mattress covers, you know, and the mattress cover, and then they'd make 2 holes for their arms and 2 for their legs. See them going down the road, or some of the guys that even trade their barracks bags, and they'd pull it, make holes for their feet, and then bring up this and tie the on top like that. And every guy, some guys name, rank, and serial number on the barracks bag. But
Let me make a small little adjustment here.
oh, okay.
So they just buy it, and you'd have the name on the back, huh? Of that bag.
So,
Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
Everything's going good. I'm gonna move this. You have maybe some little notes.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is
oh, it's no, it's not.
this is just when
Oh,
camps I was in. I thought maybe if I just run over that.
Okay, just set it off to the side.
I wrote that down several years ago so I wouldn't forget it when I was still kind of fresh, you know.
You're doing great. Thanks, Ron. You just continue. So you're telling us about the barracks bag and.
Yeah, right. And so from there we went up to City Bousid. It was kind of an oasis, and we knew that Rommel was coming through. He was going to come through Kasserine Pass, and so we went up there and laid those minefields at night. Well, our battalion, I think we laid about 8,000 mines in there, and then so you know when they come through there, but. And then one time they were supposed to make a map, you know, of where they'd been. The driver of one of those half tracks with 12 guys in it, he'd run into one of those mines and blew up the whole thing up, you know. And so and then when we got word that Rommel was making his way towards Kasserine Pass, we got busy and went up on a hill that was kind of overlooking Kasserine Pass. We wanted to get up there and have enough firepower so they wouldn't be able to go through there and locate all those mines as they come through there. And so we went up there and dug down all their guns and vehicles. And then after we got up there, we found out that the squad that was supposed to put water on all the vehicles for our drinking purposes failed to do so. And then when Rommel hit, when it was early in the morning, and the Messerschmitts and the Stukas come in and bomb the stations. Now the Messerschmitts were real fast. They come in real fast, and they had a fast recline, to get up. But the Stukas were slow coming up. We knocked down about 3 or 4 of them, and we were supposed to get air support from our own Air Force, but at that time it rained a lot, and they couldn't get the planes off of the ground. So that's why we never saw any air support. If we had air support, it'd been a different story. And on backtrack a little bit, on one of those missions, like we're going up there to lay those mines, one of our own planes come over and was strafing us. Yeah, and so we made a run, and then he went around and then come in again, and so we opened up on him and shot him down. And here we had, everything was marked and everything. I don't know what happened, but it happened.
Shooting down your own aircraft.
Yeah,
because he was shooting at you.
Yeah, right. And so when the Germans started through there, through Kasserine Pass, and then we were all dug in up there. My buddy Paul Hagedorn, just passed away this last year, was right above the half track with a 50 caliber machine gun, and I was down below with a 30 caliber, and I had about 3,000 or 4,000 rounds of ammunition here, and so we had orders, wait till they get up close, and we were pretty well dug in and camouflaged, and then they said open fire, and oh man, all hell broke loose. And we had the better part of it that day, and about half of the next day. But in the meantime, they had orders, all the other outfits had orders to drop back about 20 miles. And then our outfit, our battalion, had orders to stay there at all costs and hold our ground until they come back in a few days, And so, and then from then on, they had us surrounded there, and mortar shells and those artillery shells, coming over. You could hear those artillery shells coming. It just sounded like a fast freight. But those mortar shells, all you'd hear out there was a dull thud, and then you never heard it until it went off. And my buddy, I had a buddy who was dug in above the half track. Emerson Hack was his name, and he got hit by one of those mortars. We picked him up in pieces.
Oh, yeah.
You can imagine what a terrible mess that was. And then we had another guy there got shot in the stomach, and they couldn't do nothing but patch him up. And so we held out there for 3 days and 2 nights. And after the first day, I mean, you couldn't see 30 feet. There was all the artillery shells and mortar shells going off, And then the second day, that night, they had me set up my machine gun nest over a rock wall, and down there, and I had a machine in there, and then when they really hit us, I had no chance to get up there. I had to wait till nightfall to come back up over that, And so, but we held out there for 3 days and 2 nights, no water, and we couldn't eat because, no water. And I'll tell you one thing here: you can go a long, long time without eating anything, but you can't go too long without water. And so on the third night, why they radioed in and told us try to make it back to the lines the best way we could, which was about 20 miles back, because the Air Force was bogged down. So we took off, and then they gave us orders to leave all our wounded behind. Well, we disobeyed that. We took them out with us, and we went right by, and it was a good night to take off. It was just blacker than black, and we went right by German tanks and everything to get out of there. And they were shooting flares up around there, trying to locate us. And so we went along, and we come across a first aid station there that, well, is several miles down from where the Germans were at, and we left our wounded there. What a sight. Some of them with the legs blown off, the arms, one of them the side of their face off, some of them crying, some of them praying, and some of them cussing. Well, horrible sight. So from there we went on, and then we run into there was about, well, with a group I was with, there was about 10. We were kind of scattered out trying to make it back to the lines, and we run into a ration truck that had been knocked out of action. So we went through it, and with our knives we were getting the cans of peas, the corn, and stuff like that, and getting the juice, and so went on, and we were so stoved up that we couldn't, because we'd been all that time in Africa, never had what you call a good shower. We would just wash up out of our helmet water and kind of sponge bath like, and so and then all that marching, we made about I'd say about 12 miles or maybe a little more that night, and mostly just kind of swinging from our hips. You couldn't and so we saw we were trying to make it to the mountains. The mountains there, they're nothing like the mountains here though. But it started getting daybreak, and so there was a big cactus patch. So there was about, like I said, there was about 10 of my group, and we went into this cactus patch, and then here comes some of those Arabs, and we got it across to them, we needed some water, and they said, "Oh, comrade," and so they went and brought us some water, and it was blacker than ace of spades, but we had these purification pills, and put them in there. I drank a couple of canteens of it. I don't know where they got it, but then another one I didn't drink because going without water so long, I didn't want to get sick. But, and then they left here. And then the Arabs went and told the Germans where we were at. Yeah. So we saw what was happening. And so we split up into groups of 3 and took off, and then kind of sand dunes there and rolled along there. And we made it about a mile or something. And we went up over this one. The other 2 fellows went up over this sand dune down into the bottom, and we barely got down into the bottom, and a light armored German car appeared up on the sand dune, and just about from over to that window, or maybe a little closer, hitting the sand. And we hit the sand, and then another one come up from the rear and did the same thing. Now that's when I thought, and this is a feeling I got several times, and not only this time, but several times in prisoner war camp. When you think the next second you're a goner, and from as far back as you can remember up to the present day, it just flashes through your mind.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, it's the truth. It's just the funniest. And I thought, they just raise up their sights a little bit, and we'd been buzzard meat, you know, because like that. And then a blonde sergeant poked his head out there, and he says, "One false move and you're dead." You know, so
You said that in English, Wes?
yeah, he said it. A lot of them could speak English. Yeah, and so well, I know they had orders to take us prisoner. You know, take us up there as slave labor in Germany. And so, but I thought I was a goner, you know, and so they took our guns and ammunition away from us, and then they'd taken everything but I call it a demoralizer. It's like in the shape of a hand grenade. I had hand grenades and all kinds of stuff. It's shaped like a hand grenade, but it don't do much damage unless it's right next to something, you know. It just makes one hell of a noise. And I never paid much attention to it, and they never took it on when they searched me. And so going up they were marched this along towards Tunis, 80-mile march. We marched. It took us, I think, 3 or 4 days to make it, because, you know, and but we went along there, and we'd gone about I'd say about 2 or 3 miles, and some of the guards going along there and checking us out and everything, and some of the Germans, you know, and this one guard, he poked there where that demoralizer was, and he reached in there and pulled that out, and then he was looking at it, and then it's got a ribbon on it, you know, and then it's got a lead weight on the end of it. You throw it, and it unwinds like that, and it gets the end of the lead, and it pulls the plug and makes a hell of a noise. And I told him that, you know, kind of wait not to unwind it, you know, and then so he threw it, and then it went off. Oh, everything stopped, and so here come about about a dozen or maybe more Germans with their guns, surrounded me, you know, and they made me strip right there.
Right there.
I thought they were going to shoot me, you know.
Yeah.
And then after a while, we had some in our outfit to get to understand German, you know. They told me to put my clothes back on. And then from then on, they watched me like a hawk. And then the sergeant come up by me afterwards, you know, and he says, "Bailey, I thought they were going to shoot you." I says, "What the hell do you think I thought?"
Was it really hot, Wes, there, that time of year?
Well, it's hot in the daytime and cold at night. Yeah, cold at night. And so, and marching along, when we'd stop at night, if there was any buildings or anything, they wouldn't let us get in there. They just made us huddle up like a bunch of sheep, you know. And then another thing I wanted to say, as we were marching along there, here comes those Arabs along there making faces at us and wanting the Germans to shoot us and all that. The ones that, you know, they were so-called buddies, you know. You couldn't trust them. Like today, you can't trust them.
So when were you taken prisoner?
Huh?
When
I'm gonna
were
make
you
a quick
taken
little
prisoner?
announcement here.
What month, what year were you taken prisoner?
What month was it?
Yeah, what year?
It was February the 17th, 1942. Yeah.
So within your first month there, you were taken prisoner then? Because you said you arrived.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he wanted to know what your job was, you know, in terms.
What was the main mission?
Well, your main mission was to try to hold this area, but it didn't work.
Well, our mission in there,
Yeah.
in Africa,
Yes.
was to drive the Germans out. Yeah.
Well, he also was in the engineers. He took care of some of the repairing tanks and armored vehicles.
Oh, yeah. We did all that. We did all the work, plus fight as infantry. In fact, when it was up there on that hill, the infantry was below us and they were firing the shells in on us too. You know, in any war,
Yeah.
there's a lot of them killed by friendly fire.
Just chaos.
You can't. And then, you know, when you're up there on the front and your heart's up in your throat and you got itchy fingers, you know, it's just like in Vietnam and then in Iraq. You know, those they're shooting from a house and they're like those terrorists will go hide amongst the women and children, you know, and those shells come to you, you're going to blast them, you know. Sure, you're going to kill some of the civilians,
This is where
you
he's
know.
marching to.
How many were marching? How many prisoners were there with you? 100?
I imagine there was about 150 that they collected along other places too. Other places, yeah.
Mostly Americans, or English and Americans?
There's mostly Americans.
I'm still making
So how far
few little
inland were you?
adjustments here.
Hmm?
How far in, I'm looking at a map of Algiers right now. Let's move over here a second. So I see Tunis is right here. So where about in Algiers were you, because you said you're march 80 miles in, here's Tunis, and you were over.
Well, yeah, we ran, see, and then they don't show Catherine Pass, does it? But we marched clean over
Over there.
to Tunis.
So it's just along this area?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay.
It was about 80 miles. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I see. I was captured February the 17th, 19.
So what was going through your mind when you were captured? I mean, what was your,
Well, let's let him continue his story,
Right.
Jeff.
I mean, so it was you and the 10 guys you were with that were captured? The 10 of you? You said you broke up in groups of 3.
Right. Yeah. Well, they got them later on. We gone in different directions,
Right.
you know.
So, but they eventually got everyone?
Yeah.
Okay,
But some of them got killed, you know.
right.
Okay.
But
Go ahead.
but I thought sure it was a goner, you know, because
Oh.
they raised their sights a little bit, and it's because that was one thing I never thought I ever thought of was being captured. I thought either I'd make it or get killed or get wounded. I never crossed my mind of being a prisoner. So.
I'm going to make one more adjustment here. Hold on a quick second.
And what was the importance of Africa to the Germans? Was it the oil? Because
I
the
think
Germans
so.
went into there,
I
and
think so,
that's
yeah.
why they wanted to hold that.
Yeah.
And it took about a year to get out of there.
Yeah.
To get
Well, you know, after we got air support in there after I was captured, why Americans come in there and they'd taken over in a couple of weeks. If we'd had air support, it'd have been a lot different.
You can go ahead, Wes. I'm
Okay.
interested.
And so, like I said, at night, why you just huddle up like a bunch of sheep, and then some of them, they'd stop once in a while, let us rest a little bit, and I know some of those times that they stopped, guys' feet were hurting, so you know, they took off their shoes, which is a mistake. Their feet swelled up, and they could get them back on again. I saw that, and my feet were killing me, but I'd left them on there. And in fact, those shoes, I wore all the rest through the 26 months as a prisoner of war. The same shoes. Same shoes. Kept them up, oiled them. Yeah, because I'm getting ahead of myself. They just give you wooden shoes. So going along there, and I was telling you about the Arabs making faces at us and wanting the Germans to shoot us, and so going along there, some of those guys were so fatigued and they passed out, and so the Germans would come along and they'd kick them with their hard-toed shoes or hit them with a rifle butt. If they didn't holler or anything, then they put them on a truck. On the rest of the way. And so when we finally got into Tunis there, it was raining cats and dogs, and the wind, I bet it was 50, 60 miles an hour. And on all this trip, we never had enough water. I mean, maybe a equivalent of a canteen or two, not that, but we were all water starved. And when he got there to Tunis, they put us in a barbed wire enclosure, and in this enclosure they had a machine gun, they had a light and a machine gun tower on each corner, you know, overlooking this thing there. And they put us in there, no shelter whatsoever. And it was pouring cats and dogs, and the wind was blowing. And when we got in there, in this closure, they had like a horse watering trough in there. And the guys got in there and saw that. Oh, it was horrible. Fighting like cats and dogs to get to that water. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Oh, a horrible sight. And so stayed there. At night, we dug a hole with our helmets in the sand, and to get out of the wind. And then the next morning, a lot of us were so darn stiff couldn't get out of the hole, you know. Mm-hmm. So the guys that could get out of the hole would go around and help the others get out of the hole. So they kept us there, and then the next day they took us up to pretty close to the airport, where the racehorse barn there. And they put us in there and had us jammed in there. And we were so jammed in there, laying down, if you wanted to move over, well, you had to tell 2 or 3 guys to move with you.
How many guys were there? I mean, how many prisoners were?
In that group, that one group, there was a little over 100. Mm-hmm. So they kept us there, and then they took us down to the airport and put us on Ju-52 planes, German planes. It held 14 men, 14 prisoners, then it had a guard in there with a submachine gun and a pilot. And then they flew over the Mediterranean. I swear you could just step out of the plane right into the Mediterranean, you know, because the British Spitfires were patrolling the Mediterranean. They weren't getting anything across the Mediterranean by boat, you know, and the only way they were getting across was by air at that time. So they went over, we flew over there, and then we went over to Italy. And when we got over at Naples, the Americans, B-17s were above bombing Naples, and so a pilot of the plane, he flew about 10 or 12 miles beyond Naples and landed there and waited there until the air raid was over, you know. And then while we were there, we got out of the plane, and one of the guys there, Italian GI, Leon Volpe, he was from Pennsylvania, big, husky guy. And in this town, they had a small college there. And these students started rushing over there, you know, hollering and screaming, and some of them had sticks and everything. And I'll never forget, Leon Volpe, he started cussing them out in Italian. And he had a voice, you could hear him for 2 blocks. And they just stopped in their tracks. And went back. Yeah. And so, then later they had us get back in the plane, and they flew us back to Naples. And then they put us out in Capua, right out of Naples. You could see Mount Vesuvius is spewing night and day there. And then we stayed there, and then they had us in tents there. And then the wind come up so bad one day there, blew all the tents out, and so we were out in the open and from then on. And so we were there about a week and a half, I imagine. And then the Germans took us down and put us in boxcars. They put, like the narrow gauge boxcar out here, 35 men in a boxcar. That time we all had dysentery real bad. I mean bad. And so they gave each and every one of us a chunk of bread about like that, and the equivalent of about 2 canteens of water. And that's all we had for 4 days and 3 nights going into Germany. And then going through the Alps, while you're going through those tunnels, there was one tunnel there, I remember it was 10 miles long. The smoke from the engine choked us down, and several guys passed out. And so, I'm telling it like it is now. I'm telling it like it is. Before those groups, I could never tell it like it was. I'd just say, well, I was there, and I went there, and there,
And why
But-
couldn't you, the groups, that wasn't what they wanted you to talk about at the time? Is that why you couldn't tell the full
Well, if I tell them all this stuff, dysentery and all that, and that was right before breakfast or right before lunch. Gosh.
story? But it's important to know what really happened.
Yeah, right.
It's important.
And so that's it. We got on there, and so all of us dysentery, and all we had was one pail like that in the corner. That's it. And then the little window about like that, But in time guys got so weak.
Yeah.
They were laying down in excrement. Time we got into Germany, it was a good 2 inches or more all over there. And we were in one hell of a shape. Oh yeah, and I wanted to tell you before I'll backtrack a little bit. When we got on the plane there in Tunis, why here we were all dirty, and we hadn't shaved and red-eyed, no sleep, and everything. And so they took movies of us getting in and then off of the plane, again, send it back to Germany for propaganda.
Sure.
Yeah. And so when we finally got into Germany, and took us to a camp, Stalag 2B near Munich, and they had us outside there, and it was cold. All we had was light clothes like in Africa, and so some of the guys started a fire. Some matches started a fire and warmed themselves up. The Germans threatened to turn those dogs loose on us. Those dogs were vicious, because at night they put us in those camps. They'd lock the door, and he says, "You stay in there," and they'd turn those dogs loose in there.
German police dogs?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then when I get up to Stalag 2B, well, I'll tell you what happened up there. But then they gave us our prisoner of war numbers. My number was 111034, and they had a tag you could put around your neck. And of course, and then later on they changed that number, and I had the number 30,000. But
What was the number? What was your second number?
30,000.
30,000.
Uh-huh. And so they kept us there. Well, we went in there, and they gave us some kind of soup. I don't know what it was, but it was hot. And the first time we laid on the bed there, well, they had bunks there, And in these bunks, they had made out of like a burlap sack in the shape of a mattress, filled with wood shavings.
Mm-hmm. That's
it. And then 2 blankets. No sheets, no, that's it. Had that hot soup in there, and we got some good rest there, and then and then we were there about a week, and then they shipped us by boxcar, 35 in a boxcar, to Stalag 5B, which is right out of Friedrichshafen. And in this, there where they had two barracks at 150 apiece, and they had one, like an outside toilet, attached to the one barracks for 150 men. And everybody had dysentery. And so they put us there, and then, according to the Geneva Convention, you're not supposed to work prisoners of war around anything of any military significance. Well, they had us digging a trench to a munitions factory there, about 8 feet wide and about 9 feet deep.
Wow.
And they take us out at 6 o'clock in the morning, and brought us in at 6 o'clock at night. And then they'd line us up, take a roll call or something. And then they feed us. They gave us 2 or 3 potatoes and a couple slices of black bread, which had sawdust in it. It was rye and wheat and sawdust. A lot of guys got stomach trouble from eating that stuff. And then that was all. Nothing for breakfast. No lunch. That's it. And so they had us out there in rain or all, working in there. And I remember we were digging this trench along there by a apartment building, and a lot of German natives, lived in there. And I noticed this one woman looking out there, looking down at us there, and the guards walking up and down there, and pretty soon she threw a sack down in there, had 2 sandwiches in it. Oh, boy, I did check and see if it was poison or not. Boy, I hate it. But, and then they brought us in at night. And then they had to go over to a building and take all their clothes off, except their shorts and shoes, and put them in a pile. And when they were all wet and everything, we tried to get them, hey, let us string them out, so they dry up. They wouldn't do it. And so, and then over there, and then, like I said, they had 2 blankets, and the guys had dysentery, and then just had the one toilet, so you can imagine the mess.
Oh, yeah.
And then some of them had it so bad they couldn't even get out of their bunks. And then we had an outside privy too, with the log, Some guys go out there during the daytime, and they fall over in there. Oh, see, it was hell. And try to wash them up, in cold water and stuff like that, And so we were there about 3 months. And while we were digging this, they put in all the wiring and electrical stuff, and then for the plumbing and everything. But when we had a chance, we cut a lot of it. And later on, I heard that the whole damn thing blew up. So a couple months later. Yeah.
Well, you need to change tapes there, just a fraction of me adjust the microphone too, so that the whole munitions plant blew up.
Oh, yeah.
Well, according to the map, Friedrichshafen is down by the Swiss border. Were you aware of where you were?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I was aware of what it was. And it was close to the Swiss border, and guys, tried to escape.
There's a big lake there, too.
Yeah, and guys tried to escape, and they patrolled that border, pretty good with their dogs and everything.
No,
How long were you in the area?
we'll get there.
Where in
Where you were at?
in Stalag 5B?
Yes.
About 3 months.
Okay.
What time of year was that, Wes? In the spring?
Yeah, that was in the spring. And then from there, they loaded us in boxcars and shipped us up to Stalag 2B, which is near Hammerstein, Germany. I think now.
Go ahead, Derek. So Hammerstein, Germany.
Yeah, right. Stalag 2B out of Hammerstein, Germany. And I think that is part of Poland now. I'm not sure, but I think it is. And there, they sent us out on these farms to work. And this farm I was out on was, they call it Arbeit Kommando 1516. It was Work Camp 1516. And they had us picking potatoes and putting up hay, putting up grain, and driving the horses. Drove oxen. Never drove oxen before. But this farm was about, I imagine about 10,000 acres. And they'd have a patch, it was kind of sandy soil, you know, and they'd have a patch of timber, then they'd have a patch of grain, and then a patch of timber, and then a patch of potatoes, and then a patch of hay, you know, and then they had some sheep and stuff there. And so I was there, they put me out there picking the potatoes. That's a hard job. And then they had on this farm, they had some women from the Ukraine as prisoners, and the guys said they could outwork us, and the way the Germans treated them was horrible. And then they had some French that worked out there, and then of course they had us. They had us separated from them. But and now out there picking those potatoes, you're over there down there picking them up, and they picked them all up. You know, even the little tiny ones. They had a schnapps factory on the farm where they made potato whiskey out of it. And then overall like that, and then try to raise up, and oh man, and then you try to raise up and stretch, and then they threaten to shoot you, you know, like that. And so I'd been picking those potatoes for about a month and a half, and the chef there, he'd lost an arm, but he was in charge of the farm. He asked if anybody was having trouble with their back, and so I said to my buddies next to me, I said, nothing could be worse than picking those potatoes. So I stepped out, and so he put me with an elderly German. Well, he was in his 70s. Making those potato meters. They bring in the potatoes in the wagons, and then we'd shape them, you know, like this, and up about like that high, and just and then it was pretty high. He put it was higher than that, and then slope them down, you know, all potatoes, and then we'd put straw up to about a foot of the top on both sides, and then later on in the fall, we just cover put dirt on top there, and then cover the whole thing with straw, and they keep them there all winter. They keep good in there.
All right.
Yeah, and so. And so that was a break, you know. When they'd come in and get that, and I'd get a little break. And so when I went back in, the guy says, "Oh, Bailey, what the hell are you doing?" I told him, I said, beats the hell out of bending over, picking those potatoes. My back was killing me. And then I wanted to say he had 2 slices of bread with margarine on them. This German farmer, and he gave me one of them. Yeah.
Did they feed you any better when you were working on the farm?
Well, we got more potatoes, and bread, and that was about it. Now in the Stalag itself, well, this was about a year or so later when they started shipping Red Cross parcels through the Red Cross, and there was supposed to be one per man per week, you know, but that didn't last very long. And in these Red Cross parcels, they had a can of milk, and a can of Spam, and a can of raisins or prunes, and small cans of concentrated orange juice, 5 packs of cigarettes. And I want to say too, money was worthless in any of those. You could have $100,000. It was worthless. You could do more with a pack of cigarettes than you could money. Yeah, all right. You could bribe in the guards, everything. Because I worked there, and then and I worked on the thrash machine, and then I got infection on my neck. I got scars from malnutrition, and I don't say like boils, but it was just like open sores, and the pus just running out. And then they had me working on this thrash machine, you know, and then my head like that, I couldn't even raise my head. It was down like this, and I had just the paper on there, and come in at night, and my buddy there, Paul Hagedorn, would try to clean it off with cold water, you know, and it got worse, and it started spreading around here, and so this one day when the guard came to roust us out to go to work, you know, at 6 o'clock, I refused to go to work. I said, I got to get medical attention or I'm a goner. And he threatened to shoot me. He took the safety off and put it up there and eyeballed me, and I said, well, go ahead and shoot. If I don't get some medical attention, I'm a goner. So he hesitated for a few seconds, and then he put the gun down, and the next day he took me in the wagon, took me into the Stalag. And then in there, why they just put kind of salve on there, you know. It was a horrible mess. It looked like my buddy said, it looked like raw hamburger there, you know, all pussy and everything. And so, and then the thing of it is, nothing to recuperate from, no proteins. See, we never had any milk, eggs, or anything like that, see? And of course, we had those parcels, you know, for a short period of time, but after a while, the Germans confiscated them. We never got them. And so I stayed in there, and then it started healing. Why, it was ugly purple scars, ugly. I mean ugly. And then after a while, then they shipped me back out on the farm, and I was working out. I think I was working with putting up grain, and I got a little thistle in here. It just penetrated there, and I didn't think much about it, but pulled it out. And next day, why, my hand was swollen a little bit, and I had trouble moving it. And then the third day, man, it really swelled up. My whole hand swelled up. My arm was twice the size. And my hand was swelled up like a boxing glove. Oh, it was puffed out terrible. And then I had 2 red marks that went clean up here. And had a big knot here. And once again, I refused to go to work. And once again, he threatened to shoot me. And then finally, he took me in there. And then when he took me in there, a French doctor, who was a prisoner, he says, I don't have anything to give you, but he says, I'll cut that open. So he cut this open, like this, is here and here, and the blood and the pus just shot out of there. And it's hard to believe, but it's the truth. He put a gauze in there. It was 1.25 inches long, and into the incision, and the top of the gauze was with the top of the flesh. Honest to God's truth. That's how much it was swollen. And then it was very slow, you know, no proteins and no milk or meat. Well, the only meat, like when we were in the Stalag, the only meat we got is a horse that keel over. You have horse meat or a hog's head. And one thing good about it, in the camp, in the Stalags, they had these big pressure cookers because a lot of that stuff, the hogs wouldn't even look at it. You know, they were put under extreme heat, you know, and pressure. And
How
so
old were you, Wes, when all this, about how old were you at this time?
about this time, I was about, let's see,
40.
about 23. Yeah, about 23. And so they sent me, and then they sent me back out again, and you know they kept festering and everything, like on my neck and everything for a long time before they actually started healing. And then back out on the farm again, and they had us just taking grain sacks that weighed over 100 pounds up in the second story in the barn, you know. And my buddy there, Paul Hagedorn, he didn't weigh 90 pounds. He was just skin and bones, and he tried to go up there with it, and he couldn't. He fall down, and then they beat him up with the butt of the rifle, you know, and really hurt his back. And he's the one that passed away just last